Hi all my dear students. I welcome you all to Sri Jendra Rank Zone classes and I'm Amit Ajmani. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the next chapter, that is natural resources. Now we know that everything that surrounds us is collectively termed as environment. And in this environment, we have got our natural resources, that is the resources which are provided to us through nature. What all are the various things included in natural resources? Natural resources constitute land, water, air, and all the minerals which are present in the earth crust. Right? Now we need to relate first of all what exactly is a biosphere. Biosphere means the regions of earth crust and atmosphere which is occupied by the living organisms. And this biosphere is further subdivided into three physical divisions. The first division is land, which is also called lithosphere. Second division is water, which is also called hydrosphere. And the third division is air, which is also called atmosphere. We already know about all these divisions. The lithosphere is the outer solid crust of earth, which we call land, and its upper weathered part that forms the soil. This lithosphere constitutes approximately 25% of the total Earth's surface. The second and the main component of our biosphere is the hydrosphere. It is the water component of Earth, and approximately 75% of Earth's surface is covered with water in various forms. It may be in the form of seas or rivers or lakes or ponds or impoundments or dams. Even the underground water is considered to be another component of the hydrosphere only. Talking about the third physical division, that is the atmosphere. What is atmosphere? It is the blanket of air that covers the whole earth, right? So this atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere collectively they form the biosphere. All these three spheres, they contain two type of components. We already know the two components of biosphere are biotic components and abiotic components. Biotic components means all the living beings, all the living organisms, they constitute the biotic component of the biosphere, right? All plants, all animals, we are all the biotic components. And all the non-living are the abiotic components of the biosphere, including air, water, soil, land, temperature, etc. etc. All the non-living things. Clear? Now we'll be studying a bit in detail about the atmosphere. Atmosphere is basically the multi-layered gaseous envelope that surrounds our planet Earth. This atmosphere is very important because it filters sunlight which is reaching the earth. It affects the climate, and it is a reservoir of so many elements which are very very vital, very important and essential for all life forms. This atmosphere is further divided into five distinct layers or the five zones. What are these? They are troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermospheres, which is also called ionosphere, and exosphere. So these are the five layers or five zones of the atmosphere, right? Now in this atmosphere, the main constituent is air, and we know that air is a mixture of gases. There are so many gases which are present in air, like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide. Air also contains water vapors and suspended dust particles. The various components are present in various amounts. For example, the main component of air is nitrogen, which constitutes about 78.09%, which is a large amount. The next important component is oxygen, which is 20.93% of volume of air. Argon, which is 0.93%, carbon dioxide, which is surprisingly very less, 0.03%, and other things miscellaneous, considering the moisture and the dust particles, etc., they constitute only 0.02% of the volume of air. Now I said surprisingly carbon dioxide. This is only 0.03%. Why is it so? The percentage of carbon dioxide is very less. Why? Because this carbon dioxide is fixed by green plants, which convert this carbon dioxide into glucose when they do the process of photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. This carbon dioxide reacts with calcium oxide to form calcium carbonate, and this calcium carbonate is used by certain marine animals to make their shells, right? So that is why carbon dioxide is comparatively quite less in atmosphere. Now this atmosphere is very important. Why is it so? What is the role of atmosphere? This atmosphere plays a very vital and essential role in climate control. We know that air is a poor conductor, it's a bad conductor of heat, and that is why it plays a very important role in this process of thermoregulation. Our atmosphere keeps the average temperature of the earth fairly steady during the day and even during the course of the whole year. During the daytime, it prevents the harmful ultraviolet rays to reach the earth, and at night time, it slows down the escape of heat into the outer space. If there would have been no atmosphere, in that case, we also would have been just like moon. In moon, there is no atmosphere, and that is why the temperature range out there is ranging from minus 190 degree to 110 degree, which is not at all appropriate for the survival. So it is just because of the atmosphere, just because of the climatic control it is doing, that earth is inhabitable. Earth has survival of life forms on it. Clear? So that is why atmosphere is very important. Now let us talk about wind. How exactly wind is created? What is wind? We know it is the movement of air, right? Now when wind is moving, all the phenomena which cause this movement of air, they are the result of the changes that take place in our atmosphere due to the uneven heating of air and earth, and due to the formation of the water vapors. Now it is due to the uneven heating of the atmosphere in different regions that convection currents are set up in the air, and these convection currents cause movement of air, that means wind. We have already learnt about the sea breeze and the land breeze. It is because of the uneven heating of the land and water which causes the breeze to blow. During the daytime, the land gets heated faster than water, because of which the re-radiation of heat from land heats the air above it. Now this hot air will rise up, and because of that, an area of low pressure will be created. As compared to the land, the sea water does not get heated so rapidly. So because of this, the air which is above the sea is relatively cooler, and a high pressure area forms above sea level as compared to the air over the land. Now, in order to fill up this gap, the cooler air over the sea flows towards the land, because towards the land low pressure area is existing, and this movement of air from one region to the other creates winds. At the night time, the reverse flow of air will occur. Why? Because now, while the comparison between the land and sea is done, the land cools down rapidly. because of which the air above the land will become cooler now. But in comparison, the sea water cools down slowly, because of which the air above the sea is hotter, and therefore again now opposite will happen, and a lower air pressure will be there as compared to air pressure above the land. So now at night time, the cooler air which is present over land flows towards the sea, once again causing the breeze to blow. So this is how uneven heating of the earth that causes wind to move around. Now there are various factors which affect the movements of air depending upon the energy levels and air pressure, depending upon the diverse type of atmospheric phenomena such as breeze, windstorm, thunderstorm, monsoon rain, cyclones, tempests, typhoons, etc. These are observed. Now, what are the various factors which control all these phenomena? There are quite many. First, as we have seen, the uneven heating of land at different parts of the earth. Second is the difference in heating and cooling of land and water bodies. The third reason is the process of vaporization and the condensation of water vapors. Also, the rotation of earth influences the movement of winds. If there are high mountain ranges present in the path of the wind, even that also decides the movements of air, and the difference in topography over which the wind passes. So all these are the various factors which influence the movements of air. Let's talk about rain now. We know that when the water bodies get heated by the solar radiations during the daytime, a large amount of water evaporates. It is converted into the vapor form and it goes into the air. This water is evaporated from all the open water sources like lakes or ponds or rivers or seas and oceans. And these water vapors, when they go up in the atmosphere, these water vapors condense to form tiny droplets. Now, these tiny droplets are collected, and the enormous collection of tiny droplets of water, it appears to us in the form of clouds. These clouds, these droplets of water, once formed, they slowly grow bigger and bigger due to the further condensation of more water droplets. And when they become big enough and heavy enough, they fall down in the form of rain. Now, occasionally, when the temperature of air is very low, we know that precipitation may occur in the form of snow, sheet, or hail. So this is basically a cycle which is called the water cycle, that we relate in nature, that water continuously will get evaporated, getting condensed to form clouds, and then it will come down in the form of rain, hail, snow, etc. Clear? Now let's talk about air pollution. What exactly is air pollution? It is the addition of air pollutants such as the particulate matter or the gases and vapors into the atmosphere. If these particulate matter, the gases and vapors which are undesirable, if they enter in the atmosphere, then we call that the air is polluted. We can also define air pollution as unfavorable alteration in physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of air. That is termed as air pollution. This air pollution is mainly of two types. One is the natural air pollution, which is caused due to some natural phenomena like forest fires, dust storms, pollens, etc. And the another one, which is more concerning, is the artificial, man-made, human-made pollution. Human activities, they lead to discharge of so many unrequired, unwanted substances in the air which pollutes the air, like the burning of fossil fuels in industries that emit a lot of harmful gases and substances in the atmosphere, the vehicles, the thermoelectric plants, the gaseous emission from industries, mining, processing, stone crushing, all these activities of humans, they pollute the environment. Fine. Now, we said that vapors, gases and particulate matter, they pollute the environment. What exactly are particulate air pollutants? These are also known as suspended particulate matter or simply SPM because they remain suspended in air for quite some time. And this SPM, suspended particulate matter, it consists of smokes, soot, which is a black powder substance that is produced when coal or wood etc. is burnt. It consists of fly ash and the dust. This dust may contain the particles of silica or grit or lead or asbestos or cement or sulfur, anything. So these are all the things which together constitute the SPM, that is the suspended particulate matter in the atmosphere, which further helps in polluting it. There are certain gases which cause air pollution like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen cyanides, hydrogen fluorides, chlorine, methane, ammonia. All these gases are causing air pollution. And how exactly they are formed? They are formed from the nitrogen, sulfur and the carbon compounds which are present in the fossil fuels and the decaying organic matter. So when these fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, etc., they are burnt, all these substances which are present in these fossil fuels, they combine with oxygen and produce various gases which are liberated in the atmosphere and which cause the air pollution. Now this air pollution, of course, we know that it is very harmful. Now what are the various effects of air pollution? Let us try to understand. The SPM, the suspended particulate matter, because it is suspended in the atmosphere, in the air in which we are breathing. So, during inhalation, it enters our respiratory tract and it causes various diseases like asthma or bronchitis and allergic cold. The various other pollutants, they cause irritation in the eyes, throat and lungs. And because they mainly enter through breathing, they injure lungs, liver, kidney, spleen and nervous system. Heart related diseases also tend to increase because of this, and many people develop some terminal ailments such as cancer. Talking about the hydrocarbon vapors, these vapors are very harmful because they cause damage to the internal organs, and not only that, it also causes cancer. On natural resources, there are so many degenerative effects, harmful effects of air pollution seen in plants like falling of leaves, reduced growth, degeneration of chlorophyll, mottling of leaves. These such things have also been noticed in the plants due to the air pollution. Very importantly, this air pollution is causing two very concerning global problems, that is greenhouse effect and ozone depletion. These are the two things which has become global problems now, and they are one of the hottest topics regarding which all people are very much concerned. Let us talk about them in a bit of detail. First of all, we'll be talking about global warming. Now we know that the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, it is essential because it keeps the earth warm, just like a glass wall that keeps a greenhouse warm. And this is done because carbon dioxide traps or absorbs the infrared radiations, and they do not allow the long wave radiation from Earth to escape in the outer space. Now this is very essential because this is the reason why the temperature of our Earth is maintained. And this actual heating up effect is called greenhouse effect. But the problem which is arising is due to the fact that the carbon dioxide is increasing in our atmosphere. Now, because of this increase in the levels of the carbon dioxide, the problem is now the greenhouse effect is intensified, and it is causing global warming at a much faster rate than what exactly is acceptable. And this is how the average temperature of the earth is increasing, and we know exactly what is going to happen because of it. All the glaciers, all our polar ice, that is melting at a very fast speed. And if the same process of increase in the earth's temperature continues, then in that case all that polar ice will melt. These polar ice caps, we know that these are the main source of fresh water. And when all this ice is going to melt, where is that water going to go? It is going to mix in the seas and the oceans. The first drawback and the harmful effect is all that ice resource is exhausted. Second important thing is there is so much of polar ice. If all of that is melted, there will be a huge increase in the sea levels, because of which all the low-lying areas will be submerged, causing a enormous loss to the huge variety of flora and fauna surviving there. So that is what is the problem which we are afraid of, or which we are concerned about, which is caused because of global warming. And this carbon dioxide, how is it getting involved in the atmosphere? How is it increasing? Human activities. Number one is the deforestation. For our advancement, for fulfilling the requirements of the growing population, we are cutting down the trees like maniacs without realizing what exactly it is going to cost us and our future generations. Secondly, our energy requirements have increased so much, because of which the use of fossil fuels has increased to a great extent, causing a lot of carbon dioxide coming up and adding up in the atmosphere. Right? Now, the second disastrous and problematic thing caused due to air pollution is ozone depletion. We know that ozone is an allotrope of oxygen, right? It is O3 molecule. Now, this ozone is highly poisonous to living systems, and this ozone is present in the stratosphere region of the atmosphere, right? The part of the atmosphere where this ozone is found in plenty, that is called ozone layer or ozone sphere or ozone umbrella or ozone shield. Now this ozone layer is very important to us, to the living organisms who are surviving on earth, because this ozone layer filters out the harmful high energy UV rays, the ultraviolet radiations coming from the sun, right? Now, there are so many reasons why this ozone is getting depleted. There are so many ozone depletion sources such as chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, halogens, methyl bromide, nitrogen oxides, chlorine. They are all responsible for ozone depletion. All these ODS or the ozone depleting sources are actually reacting with the ozone and depleting it, making it thin. These CFCs are commonly used as aerosol propellants, refrigerants, shaving foams, spray agents in scents, etc. These are one of the major causes for ozone depletion, and we are concerned about it. Why? Because if the ozone is depleted the way it is being done, more UV radiations will pass through it and they will enter the earth's surface. These ultraviolet radiations are very harmful. Why? because of their harmful effects not only on human beings but on animals, plants and environments also. For example, these UV rays are known to cause skin cancer. They cause damage to eyes. They also increase in incidence of cataract diseases in eyes. They also are responsible in damaging the immune system. They lead to the increased embryonic mortality in animals and humans. Because of this ozone, the crop yields will decrease, and it also leads to the reduced populations of phytoplanktons, that is the microscopic plants in water, zooplanktons, the microscopic animals in water, and certain fish larvae that are very important constituents of aquatic food chains. And this ozone is also known to increase the smog formation. So these are all the harmful effects of ozone, and that is why we want this ozone layer, because this ozone layer is protecting us from these ultraviolet radiations, right, which are coming from the sun and causing all these above. So these are the two major problems we are dealing with: global warming and ozone depletion. Now there are certain bioindicators. What are bioindicators? Some organisms are very sensitive towards the level of contaminants like sulfur dioxide, and these indicators are the indicators of pollution. For example, lichen. They are commonly found on barks of trees as thin greenish white crust. So they are the indicators showing that the pollution level is increasing. Fine. So this is all about our air and air pollution. Let us come to the next natural resource, that is our water. We know that water, the layer, the surface, the sphere, is collectively hydrosphere, which consists of all the oceans, rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, pools, polar ice caps, water vapors, groundwater, everything. Right? We know that water is an inexhaustible natural resource, and it occupies 75% of the Earth's surface in various forms. 71% of the Earth is covered by oceans, which contain 97.5% of the total water on Earth. Land contains only 2.5% of the total water. A major part, that is 1.9% of this total of water, it occurs as ice caps and glaciers. And what we are left with is only 0.6% of the total which supports total life, which is called fresh water. Right? Now water exists in various, all the three states of matter, whether it is in solid form, snow, or liquid form, water, or gaseous form, water vapor forms. Clear? So water is found in all the various forms. We know, we have studied that life on earth began in the seas, and since then water in some form or the other is must. It is mandatory for the maintenance of all life forms. Talking about the humans, we use water mainly for drinking, or we also use it for washing of utensils and clothes, for sewage disposal, for irrigation, and so many other purposes where water is used. Now this is very important, because all the reactions that take place in our body and within our cells, they all occur among the water soluble substances. Also, all the substances, the nutrients, the waste products, they are getting transported from the one part of the body to another in their dissolved form. That is why it is must for all the living organisms to maintain a minimum level of water within their bodies, so that we are able to stay alive. Now, when we talk about the terrestrial life forms, we know that we people who are living on land, we require only fresh water for our survival. Why? Why not sea water or salty water? The reason is that in seawater there are so many dissolved salts, calcium, magnesium salts, and our bodies cannot tolerate and they cannot get rid of that high amount of dissolved salts in the saline water. That is why we require fresh water only. Correct? Now, talking about the conservation and the management of water resources, there are various ways in which we can conserve and manage the water resources. For example, development of integrated watershed plan, which can be used for drinking, irrigation, and industrial use. We can adopt various flood control methods. We should transfer the surplus water to the water deficit basins by interlinking all the rivers, etc. We need to identify the various areas where this fresh water is overexploited. We need to do the extensive hydrogeological surveys. We need to recharge the groundwater by artificial means. And in order to avoid wastage and misuse of water, there is a dire need of mass awareness program through public and private agencies. So many times in our houses we have seen that our taps are leaking. Usually water is wasted by mainly this reason in almost every second or third house. At times this water is wasted in excessive irrigation of crop fields. This is what we need to make sure that we plan, we accordingly act, and we try to avoid the wastage of water, because water being a very precious natural resource. Now, what exactly is water pollution? We already know: an undesirable change in the physical, biological, or chemical qualities of water due to anything. If any of the foreign, if any of the undesirable substance is getting added to water, right? The addition of any foreign, organic or inorganic or biological or radioactive substance that adversely affects the aquatic life and that makes the water unfit for use, then that is called water pollution. Now, this water pollution is mainly of three types. One is surface water pollution, which is the inland water pollution. Next is the underground water pollution, and next is the marine water pollution. Now, what are the various pollutants which are causing this water pollution? Let us try to understand. There are organic water pollutants, which include the detergents, the food processing waste, the insecticides and herbicides, the petroleum hydrocarbons, and the volatile organic compounds. Second types of water pollutants are the inorganic water pollutants, which include acidity caused by industrial discharge, or the ammonia from food processing waste, or the chemical waste as industrial byproducts. So these are the two types of water pollutants. Now there are certain causes or there are certain sources of water pollution. What are these? Let us try to understand. Sewage, all our waste from the house, that is one of the main cause of water pollution. Then the industrial waste from our industries, all the waste material, they are drained off in water bodies, which cause a lot of water pollution. The synthetic soaps and detergents with which we wash our clothes, all those soaps and detergents, they through the water bodies they enter and cause water pollution. The various fertilizers and pesticides which we use on our crops to increase the productivity, they wash away with the irrigation water and they also add up into the water bodies, causing water pollution. The petroleum oil and the thermal pollution is also one of the source of water pollution. It is quite obvious that we need to restrict the water pollution, because water pollution is very harmful. Now, what are the various harmful effects? Let us try to understand one by one. First thing, human diseases. All the pathogens, disease causing microorganisms are biological pollutants of water, inclusive of viruses or bacteria or fungi or protozoan or helminths or nematodes, any of them. Now, all these pathogens cause so many diseases in humans like typhoid, cholera, dysentery, jaundice, hepatitis. So many diseases which are caused in humans if water is polluted. This water pollution also leads to disturbance in ecological balance because whatever pollutant it is, all of them they affect the life forms living in the water. These pollutants will encourage the growth of certain life forms and they can harm certain life forms. So because of this, the total balance between the various organisms which was initially persisting in the system, that is altogether disturbed, and obviously that is harmful. Another harmful effect is that water pollution leads to removal of desirable substances from water bodies. Why? Because lot of organic waste is increasing in water, due to which the bacteria multiply rapidly and they use up the available oxygen. If the water is lacking oxygen, obviously all the aquatic fishes and other animals, they are going to be killed. Clear? Next harmful effect is due to the thermal pollution or the change in temperature. All the aquatic organisms, they are used to a certain range of temperature in the water body wherever their habitat is. If there is a sudden marked change in this temperature, that may prove very harmful and dangerous for them in various forms. It may affect the breeding of aquatic animals, and mainly the eggs and the larvae of various animals, they are specifically susceptible and prone to these temperature changes, so they will be killed. Let us come to the next harmful effect: destruction of useful microorganisms. There are so many times that the industrial waste is mixed with these water bodies like rivers and lakes, and that too without treating them, because of the effect of which the acids, alkalis and heavy metals which were present in that industrial waste, that also reaches the water bodies and they kill the useful organisms which were present there. Now these all organisms are the natural cleansing agents of water, right? There is a self purification process which is going on its own. But when these microorganisms get killed, then in that case, this self-purification process is hindered. Once again, which is disastrous, which is destructive, right? Next, quite important, you need to relate is eutrophication. Now, what exactly is eutrophication? It is the process in which the dissolved oxygen in water gets reduced. We have just seen that like bacteria is continuously multiplying rapidly and consuming the oxygen, the dissolved oxygen, that is how even when their fertilizers and pesticides, certain harmful chemical substances, they enter the water bodies, they lead to excessive growth of algae. Now this algae is basically due to the extra loading of nutrients in the water body, and they will consume the dissolved oxygen of the water during the decomposition of the dead algae, and in the absence of dissolved oxygen we can very well relate that the aquatic life is going to suffer, they are going to die. Clear? Next is biomagnification or bioaccumulation. We know that there are aquatic food chains going on. When various pesticides or various harmful chemicals are sprayed on the crops and they wash down with irrigation water into these water bodies, then it is a problem. because all these mostly are non-biodegradable. They are not going to be degraded. So directly or indirectly from soil or water, these pesticides and these heavy metals, they then enter the food chain via the producers and they get accumulated in our bodies and they are very harmful. We already know because they are biodegradable. They are going to stay there and damage our body. So these are all the harmful effects of water pollution and this is all about water. Fine. First of all, we talked about air or atmosphere. We talked about the composition of air. We talked about the air pollution, right? Then the second natural resource that we took was water. We talked about the various types of water pollution and the harmful effects of water pollution. Clear? Now let us understand the third very important natural resource, that is our soil. Now we know that soil is the outermost layer of earth and it consists of disintegrated rock and decaying organic material. It also provides support for many plants and animals. Terrestrial as well as aquatic plants, they depend upon the soil and water bed respectively for their nutrients, for their water supply and for their anchorage. So it makes soil a very important natural resource. Now how exactly this soil was formed? Very slow process which took a long time. This soil is formed from huge rocks with the help of some biological, some physical and some chemical agents. And the process in which this soil was formed is called weathering. Let us try to understand this weathering in a bit more detail. First is the physical weathering. There are certain climatic factors such as temperature, wind, rainwater, ice, snow, glaciers, running water. They all contributed to this process of physical weathering. How? Water and high temperature cause corrosive humidity, and because of which there is an unequal expansion and contraction of rocks. When this happens, it facilitates their breakdown and forming soil. At times, the freezing water expands in rock crevices and helps in breaking the rocks. Wind action, it is also responsible for the weathering of rocks, as they erode the rock surfaces by rubbing and striking its abrasive particles against the rock surface. Clear? The river water, the flowing water, the running water, it also grinds the rock chips and stones into sand and into finer form, the silt. The roots of the plants, they also play a major role in weathering process. How? They penetrate into the crevices of the rocks and assist in the rock breaking process. So all these are under physical weathering which actually help in the formation of soil. Another is biological weathering, which is done by living organisms such as lichens and bryophytes, the mosses. Now these lichens which are growing on rock surface, they extract the minerals from the rocks, because of which there create small crevices at places and a thin layer of soil builds up. Now when mosses grow over these crevices, they cause deepening of the crevices and result in build-up of more soil inside them. So this is how very slowly it took hundreds and thousands and millions of years for this huge amount of soil to be formed, which we can see today on our surface. Clear? Now we know what exactly humus is. It is the top layer of soil which contains bits of decayed living organisms and organic matter, and it causes soil to become more porous and allows water and air to penetrate deep underground. Right? Now we also know there are various human activities which are causing soil pollution. excessive use of fertilizers in the crops. It is making the soil either too acidic or too basic, dumping all the non-biodegradable waste in the soil. That is also causing soil pollution. Because of deforestation, there is a lot of soil erosion taking place. So all these things need to be avoided and prevented, because as we just saw, soil takes millions and years for its formation, and this soil is most important. We get all our nutrient requirement, mineral requirement fulfilled from soil. All our crops are grown in this soil. So if the soil is not there, if the soil is not fertile, what exactly and how exactly we'll be able to do? From where we are going to get our crops? So that is why we need to actually preserve the natural resource called soil. Clear? So till now we have studied about the most important natural resources. Number one, we talked about the air, we talked about the water then, and we talked about soil. In all these things, we need to relate what are the various pollutants, whether it is air pollution or water pollution or soil pollution, and what are the harmful effects of air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution. Clear? Now, in our environment, there is a continuation, exchange, and conversion of these natural resources is going on, which is represented through biogeochemical cycles. What are these cycles? These are the representation which show the interaction between the biotic and the abiotic components of the ecosystems. These are the representations which show the circulation of chemicals and substances from environment to organism, and then again back to environment in a cyclic manner. Let us try to understand these biogeochemical cycles. The first one, let us study about the water or hydrological cycle. We know that there is a constant exchange of water between the air, land, and sea, and also between the various living organisms and their environments. And how does that exchange take place? The process starts with the evaporation of water from the hydrosphere. All the water bodies, whether it be oceans or seas or rivers or streams or lakes or ponds or moist soil, when sun rays fall on them, then because of the heat, this water gets evaporated and goes into the atmosphere into the form of water vapors. There it is going to condense to form clouds. Now when these clouds become heavy and big, then the water in these clouds, it falls back on earth as rain, hail or sleet. Some water flows back into the sea, some forms the underground water, and some of the water is utilized by plants and animals as fresh water. So this is a continuous process going on in our environment, and this water is cycled, and this is called water cycle or the hydrological cycle. The next cycle is nitrogen cycle. Now this is quite important, and we need to relate lot many things in it. So please try to focus this nitrogen cycle. We know that nitrogen is very important chemical which is present on earth, and it is present in all the living organisms in various forms, whether it is in the form of proteins or amino acids or nucleic acids, right? Now nitrogen exists in the molecular form N2 and in the form of some oxides in the atmosphere. This molecular form and other oxide forms are first of all fixed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria which are present in the root nodules of the leguminous plants. This nitrogen is fixed in the form of ammonia, and this unstable form is converted further into nitrites and finally into nitrates. Now the plants are going to take this nitrogen in the form of nitrites and nitrates, and they will convert this nitrate into amino group, which will be available for animals. So this is how nitrogen is taken up by the plants and animals from the atmosphere. How exactly it is going to be returned back? It is returned to water and soil through excretion or the death of the nitrogenous compounds in living matter. There are certain denitrifying bacteria also which convert these nitrates and nitrites into elemental nitrogen and send it back to the environment. Let us try to understand the nitrogen cycle through this diagram. This is, please relate my marker, this is the nitrogen in atmosphere. This nitrogen is either going to be fixed, the nitrogen fixation process is going to take place, and it is going to fix in the soil from where the green plants are going to absorb this, and it will form the protoplasm of the green plants, right? Or this nitrogen can also be directly fixed industrially or through atmospheric fixation, and it will be directly converted into nitrates, right? Now this protoplasm, green plants will be either eaten up by the animals and they will form the protoplasm of the animals, or these green plants, when they will die, then ammonification process will take place and they will be converted into ammonia, which is the same way as the animals will be converted into ammonia. This ammonia will be further converted into nitrites. These nitrites will be converted into nitrates. Now either these nitrates are going to be taken back again by the plants from the soil, or denitrifying bacteria by the process of denitrification will convert this into elemental nitrogen and send it back to the atmosphere. This is what exactly nitrogen cycle is. Now in this nitrogen cycle, quite importantly, these are the various microorganisms which play very important role. Let us see which are these and what role do they play. First is rhizobium bacteria, which is present in the root nodules, or the azotobacter bacteria which is present in the soil. Both of them help in the process of nitrogen fixation, means they will convert the atmospheric nitrogen gas into nitrogen compounds. The blue-green algae also helps in the process of nitrogen fixation. So these are the three organisms which are responsible for nitrogen fixation, right? Next are the organisms which are going to convert this nitrogen into various forms, like the putrefying bacteria or the fungi. They help in the process called ammonification. Now what is ammonification? This is the process in which the nitrogen containing proteins of the dead plants and animals are converted into ammonia, right? Now this ammonia will be acted upon by the nitrifying bacteria, which will convert this ammonia into nitrites and then into nitrates, and the process is called nitrification. Now these nitrifying bacteria are further subdivided into two. One are nitrosomonas bacteria, which converts ammonia into nitrites, and nitrobacter bacteria, which converts the nitrites into nitrates, right? Now the last type of microorganisms are the denitrifying bacteria, which are called pseudomonas. They help in the process of denitrification, means they will convert the nitrate salts into free nitrogen gas. So these are the various microorganisms and their roles you need to learn. This is very important. Clear? whether it is rhizobium, azotobacter, blue-green algae, putrefying bacteria, fungi, nitrosomonas, nitrobacter, or pseudomonas. You need to relate the function and role of all of them. Learn them by heart, please. Okay. Now, quite importantly, among all the cycles, nitrogen cycle is called a perfect cycle. Why? Because it maintains the overall amount of nitrogen constant in the atmosphere, soil as well as water. That is why it is called perfect cycle. Clear? Let's talk about the oxygen cycle next. Oxygen, we know that it is one of the constituents of water and it forms about 21% of the air in the atmosphere. Oxygen, ultra important because it is must for us human beings and living organisms, because due to respiration, that is this oxygen is required to break down the glucose in our bodies to generate energy. Now this oxygen enters the living world through respiration, where it is used to oxidize the food material, that is glucose, and as a result of which energy will be produced along with carbon dioxide. Now we know that this carbon dioxide will be taken up by the plants in the process of photosynthesis, and as a byproduct they will liberate oxygen. So this is what exactly oxygen cycle is. Let us try to understand it. Oxygen in air and water, through respiration, it liberates carbon dioxide and water. This carbon dioxide and water are taken up by plants by the process of photosynthesis, in which they form the organic glucose, that is C6H12O6, and they will liberate oxygen back. Clear? So this is simple oxygen cycle. Now the concentration of oxygen in the air and water, it is maintained by equal rate of its use in respiration and release in photosynthesis. And that is also one of the major reasons why we always stress on afforestation, because it is only plants who are going to provide us oxygen. It is only plants which are going to absorb this carbon dioxide. So plants are very important, and we need to make sure that deforestation is avoided as much as possible. Fine. Now let us come to the last cycle, that is carbon cycle. Carbon, we know that it is also one of the very important constituent of organic compounds, which is found in all the living beings, whether it is in the form of carbohydrates or fats or proteins or nucleic acids. All the consumers, they devour the organic carbon compound that producers manufacture, and through respiration process, both the consumers as well as the producers, they will return the carbon to the non-living environment in the form of carbon dioxide. Fine. Let us once again try to relate the carbon cycle through its diagrammatic presentation. This is the carbon dioxide in atmosphere. This carbon dioxide is either utilized by the marine animals to form their shells, because it gets in the form of carbonates in water and limestone, right? This carbon dioxide is taken up by the plants by the process or during the process of photosynthesis to form the organic compounds. Now when these plants, they respire, they will give back carbon dioxide back in the atmosphere, or these plants will be eaten up by animals and they form the organic compounds of animals. These organic compounds, when they respire or decompose, they will get back in the form of carbon dioxide. If not eaten by animals, these plants, when they die and decay, they are converted into fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. Same is the case with animals. They are also get converted into coal and petroleum. And when these fossil fuels are burnt, When their combustion is done, we know that once again carbon dioxide is released. Some animals also form their organic carbonate shells, right? So this is how carbon is circulated in the atmosphere, in the environment. This is about our carbon cycle, and this is about our chapter natural resources. Quite simple chapter, quite normal chapter, right? Let us try to once again brush up the contents of this chapter that we have studied. It'll take just another 2-3 minutes, but that is important that you revise the chapter thoroughly. It's quite simple, but you need to relate it. First of all, what exactly are natural resources? The things which are present and given to us by nature, including the land, water, air, and all the minerals, all the constituents of all these. Then we talked about the biosphere and the various zones or divisions of biosphere, including the lithosphere, or including the different spheres, hydrosphere, and let me mark it with a different pen to make it sure that what are the important things. Biosphere consists of lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Lithosphere, outer solid crust of Earth, land. Hydrosphere is water, atmosphere is air. Components of biosphere are living and non-living, that is the biotic and the abiotic components. Then we studied first about the atmosphere and air. Atmosphere, we know that there are 5 various layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere. Air, consisting of various different gases, in which nitrogen is present in the maximum amount, that is around 78.09%, then oxygen and some traces of other gases also. Why is carbon dioxide so less? Because this carbon dioxide is getting fixed in various forms. What is the importance of atmosphere? It helps in climate control, it helps in thermoregulation, right? Then we saw how movement of air, wind was caused. We saw it was due to the uneven heating of land and water during daytime and nighttime, which caused a region of low pressure and high pressure, and to fill up the gap, air moves either from land to sea or sea to land. There are various factors influencing the movements of air, like uneven heating of land, difference in heating and cooling of land and water bodies, vaporization and condensation of water vapors due to the rotation of Earth, presence of high mountain ranges in the path of wind, and difference in topography over which the wind passes. Then we studied a bit about rain. How exactly rain is formed? We already know, right? Quite simple topic. Air pollution. Quite importantly, any unfavorable alteration in the physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of air is termed as air pollution. Two types we studied, mainly natural and artificial or man-made or human. SPM, we need to relate the full form, suspended particulate matter, and it contains lot many things, including the smoke, soot, and fly ash and dust, and the particles of various substances like silica, grit, lead, asbestos, cement, or sulfur. Gases like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc. They also contribute to air pollution. Harmful effects of air pollution: diseases like asthma, bronchitis, and allergic cold. Then irritation in eyes, throat, lungs, various organs affected, heart problems tend to increase, cancer may also be caused, internal organs are affected, and in plants, various factors like falling of leaves, reduced growth, degeneration of chlorophyll, and mottling of leaves, etc. Very important that we need to be concerned with is the two main things: harmful effects of air pollution, global warming, that is the greenhouse effect, and ozone depletion. Global warming caused due to the trapping of infrared radiations by the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, water vapors, etc. Right? Global warming or greenhouse effect is causing increase in the average temperature of Earth, causing melting of polar ice. Next is ozone depletion. This ozone depletion is because of ODS, that is ozone depletion sources like CFCs, halons, methyl bromide, nitrogen oxide, chlorine. Main culprit is CFCs, which are normally used in aerosols, propellants, refrigerants, shaving foam, spray agents, incense, etc. These CFC, they react with ozone, which is O3, which is mainly present in the stratosphere region. And problem is that this ozone depletion is going to let the harmful ultraviolet radiations to enter the Earth atmosphere. These ultraviolet radiations are known to cause these problems: skin cancer, cataract disease in eyes, damage to immune system, embryonic mortality, decreasing crop yields, phytoplankton, zooplankton and fish larvae reduced population, and smog formation. So that is why UV rays should not enter, and that is why, quite importantly, ozone layer is must. Bio indicators, very important. I am marking it important because there have been many times questions coming from it. We need to relate the lichens, and they are formed because of the increased levels of contaminants like sulfur dioxide. They are commonly found on barks of trees as thin greenish white crust. Fine. This is all you need to remember in air. Then we came to water. In water, we know that water is very important. We need to maintain water level in our bodies because of the various functions. We need only fresh water because our bodies cannot tolerate or they cannot get rid of the extra salts present in seawater. Then we saw about the various practices how we can conserve and manage the water resources. Importantly, water pollution. Any undesirable change in the physical, biological or chemical qualities of water which affects the aquatic life and makes the water unfit for use, that is called water pollution. Types are surface, underground and marine water pollution. Pollutants are whether they are organic or inorganic. Two types of pollutants are there. Sources, there are various sources like sewage, industrial waste, synthetic soaps and detergents, fertilizers and pesticides, petroleum oil and thermal pollution. Harmful effects of water pollution, quite importantly, various diseases caused by these water pollutants, then disturbance in ecological balance of the area, then removal of certain desirable substances from water bodies, the thermal pollution or the change in temperature, quite importantly, various useful microorganisms which are actually the natural cleansing agents and helping in the self-purification process of water. Next, you need to relate what is eutrophication, the decrease in the amount of dissolved oxygen because of the growth of algae, and biomagnification, the pesticide level is increasing. Correct? Next is soil and the soil pollution. How exactly soil was formed? By the physical weathering caused by various factors like temperature, wind, rainwater, ice, snow, glaciers and running water. Different other biological magnification of weathering were also there. Biological weathering caused by lichens and mosses. Humus, we need to relate what is humus. Very importantly, biogeochemical cycles, in which we studied about water cycle, we studied about nitrogen cycle. In nitrogen cycle, very importantly, you need to relate the various processes. What is nitrogen fixation? What is ammonification? What is nitrification? What is denitrification? These four processes you need to relate and you need to learn this table. The four processes that we talked were nitrogen fixation, number 2 ammonification, number 3 nitrification, and number 4 is denitrification. Various microorganisms are involved in all these processes. For nitrogen fixation, we have got rhizobium, azotobacter and blue-green algae. Rhizomia is present in root nodules of leguminous plants. Azotobacter in soil. For ammonification, we have got putrefying bacteria and fungi. For nitrification, we have got nitrifying bacteria in which the nitrosomonas, it converts the ammonia into nitrites, and nitrobacter, which converts nitrites into nitrates. And pseudomonas, that is the denitrifying bacteria, causes denitrification, that is conversion of nitrate salts into free nitrogen gas. Clear? So this table is very important. Which cycle is called perfect cycle? It is the nitrogen cycle. Then we studied about the oxygen cycle, which involved mainly respiration and photosynthesis. And carbon cycle. Now in carbon cycle, you need to relate this particular diagram where we have seen how carbon is utilized and how exactly it is returned back into the atmosphere. Clear? So now this is once again all about natural resources. Once again, I would like to emphasize that this is quite a common and general chapter. You need to go through this, and there are only very few things that you need to learn or you need to focus on. Otherwise, it is general reading, I suppose. Everything we are already aware of. By the time we reach this age, these are common things which we have been doing so many times in our previous classes. Clear? So I don't think that it should take more time for you people to learn natural resources by heart. Okay, so time to end up this particular session. We'll be meeting in our next class with the question answers of natural resources. Be prepared for them. Learn all the things, especially the table, and especially those things which I have emphasized while revising. Clear to all? I hope that whatever we have done today, you should have understood. And if any doubt, any problem, you can go through all the details again. So all things will be removed. So next class, we'll meet you and we'll be meeting to do the question answers. Till then, take care of yourself and have a good time, guys. Bye, everyone.